recent times, there's been a lot of discussion about Allah before Islam, right? The God Allah, who is of course, the name of God in Islam. You know, what is the pre-Islamic context? Because Allah was worshipped in pre-Islamic times. But, you know, who was he? We don't have any kind of liturgical text associated with him. We have some very basic prayers. So, for example, we have at Qariyat al-Fawad inscription, a gravestone where some guy wants to protect the grave of his brother. So he invokes Kahal, Allah, and Athar al-Shariq, these three gods, Allah being one of them, to, you know, protect the grave. Fine. But that doesn't really tell us anything about this deity. We don't know anything. Okay, he's part of a triad. That's what, you know, from an Islamic perspective, they would say that shirk. Fine. Association. But that's not new. But we know nothing about him. Fine. He had some interesting prayers to Allah. One that's very, very interesting. And now you'll see where we're going with this. This prayer was by a man who had just been appointed a military commander. And so what does he do? Aslaya. He makes a burnt offering. Wa aqsama billah hayya. And he swore an oath by Allah, Hayya, who is living. And you're like, whoa, that's nice. That's interesting to talk about a living God. Now we're a little bit in business, that he will lead with greatness. Okay, fine. But, you know, that's just a glimpse. Allah occurs in Safavidic at the time that I wrote my book 41 times. All right. We don't know anything about him. Now, I have some ideas of it. Allah is clearly an epithet, meaning it's not the proper name of a god. It literally means it literally means the God. Okay, so it's an epithet, like the great God. The fact that it has the al-def in the article tells us that the Safavidic guys, so the guys out here in the desert, that they took this god from their neighbors because they like to use the definite article ha. They don't use al, but the Nabateans use al. So it's very likely that they took this god from the Nabateans. They brought him over. Okay, fine. But who is he? What do we know? So we found an inscription here. Now I have a preliminary study of that. I found this on the airplane. I'm sitting there, you know, working through this stuff 14 hours, and I come across this one, and you know, your eyes go big, and you're like, oh my God, what am I reading? This is incredible. So the inscription, just to put it, I won't show it because I need to publish it soon, but the inscription begins with a guy lamenting the widespread, basically afflictions were all over the place. The land had been afflicted, all right? It's bad. So he calls out to Allah, oh Allah, Noora, bestow light, Noor, all right? Bestow light, which is a really weird prayer. Usually when these Safavidic guys ask for things, they're practical things. You know, spoil, revenge, rain, but light is really something intangible. I mean, what is Noor? And Noor, which is very interesting, is light that's associated with the moon. Okay, so one of the epithets of the moon in Safavidic is Na'ir, which is the illuminated one, but using the same word Nur, right? Even in the Quran, you have to pick up on this. God creates, he makes the sun, وَجَعَلَ الشَّمْسَ ضِيَاءً, he makes the sun ضِيَاء, وَالْقَمَرَ نُورًا, and the moon Nur, right? So it's connected with the Nur. But of course, also in the Quran, Allah, God, is Nur as-samawati wal-ard. He is the Nur of the heavens and the earth. Okay, which is very interesting. So what you have in this inscription already is sort of an antecedent of Quranic diction, where Nur, light, a very abstract thing to be asking for, is associated with Allah. But it even gets better. Our man then says that he made a sacrifice, some kind of sacrifice, bi binyatihi, or bi binyatoh in Safavidic, in his temple, binya, in his temple. And binya, this word here is actually one of the words used to describe the Kaaba. Now, that's not saying this man went to Mecca. No. What we're saying is that there is a complex of vocabulary here associated with this deity. And one of it is the temple associated with this deity is called the Binyat, which is very important. Otherwise, in Safavidic and North Arabian, temples are usually called Bait. Okay, fine. This one is the Binyat. So he does that. And then he makes his request. He asks Allah, awahabannahu, and may he bestow upon him hitta, all right, a portion. Fine. But what is the epithet of Allah in this final clause? The epithet of Allah in this final clause is dhu khalaqa, the one who has created. And it's the same verb in the Quran used for creation, khalaqa, which is an Arabic isogloss. Okay? And what is the basic meaning of this verb? It means to split. So we have, again, now in a pre-Islamic Arabian context, we can see that the creation of the universe belongs to this basic splitting action that we find in all of the other ancient Near Eastern traditions.
Exactly.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, you got this in Genesis.
What does that tell us, man? This is what's so important. When we encounter these things in the Quran in the 7th century, we say, is this the impact of the Hebrew Bible?
Right.
Or Jewish liturgy on the Quran? Is that the impact of, let's say, the Arabians interacting and taking over from those traditions? And that's why Allah is described in such a way, because he's the monotheistic God. So he's described in such a way there. But then having it attested 600 years before the Quran in a completely pagan context. And these Safavid guys are pagans, man.
Right.
They are worshiping, 50, 60 gods. And that's the ones we know about. And they have no problem worshiping Allah beside other gods. They do it all the time. But in this completely pagan context, we see the same package of vocabulary and concepts that appears in the Quran. So this precludes direct borrowing, but rather speaks to what? It speaks to a shared Near Eastern mythological heritage where the cosmos is created through the act of splitting, separating, right?
Yep.
This is it. And that's the verb khalaqa there already in Safavidic, right? Arabic isogloss associated with Allah at his temple, asking him for nur. It all comes together and it's all, we're saying 600-700 years before the Quran.